What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to an all-new episode of TAETRO Talks. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here today. We have a good interview for you today with a special guest. You know, sometimes on this show, every Tuesday, we either do call-in shows where you can call in and ask questions, or we have special guests, which we have Nandu today. So get ready for that, and I will be taking questions for our guests from the chat as well. So there's that. Our guest today is part of 343 Labs Pro Sessions, which I've got a link to in the description of the video, which is basically like a weekend workshop, deep dive with an artist. You spend the weekend going into their project files, getting into their creative process, that sort of thing. So it's a really good time. And you can actually save $10 on the Pro Sessions for this weekend with the code in the description using code TAETRO Talks. And that's fun. I see a lot of folks in chat already. Hello, my friends. Thank you all for being here today. It's a busy day today. A little housekeeping at the top here. Arteria just dropped Pigments 3. So I'm going to be doing a stream with Pigments 3 later today. That stream is already up a little bit earlier for a Tuesday for me, but that'll be happening later today at 12. So get ready for that. But I want to say hello, Samuel Messiah, L Talks, Ed, Juan, Sam, Enigmatic Onion. What's going on, everybody? Welcome. Oh, mom and dad are in the chat too. Look at that. Juan, did I say hello to you? Hello. Welcome. Thank you for being here. But yeah, this should be a fun show today. It's going to be a busy day, like I said. We're going to get into the interview in a minute, but I'll let you know that today's stream is brought to you by 343 Labs, which is an electronic music school based in Berlin, New York, and online. And of course, summer programs are starting, so you should get ready for that. I know it's crazy to even be thinking about summer already, but the weather's already getting warmer for a lot of us. So if you're looking to level up your music production game, or if you want to learn more about like synthesis and sound design or DAWs, right? Like Logic and Ableton at 3 different levels, right? Like beginner, intermediate, advanced. Lots of great courses for you on 343labs.com, which you can check the link in the description. See if any of those courses are for you. And then if you want to just get a taste of like working with the instructors, we are live on 343 TV, just like this show, on youtube.com/343labs. And we're live multiple times a week. So tomorrow, producer Lewis Beck, who's also a 343 Labs instructor, is going to be talking about music production myths. He's going to do music production myth busting, which is really fun. And let's see, we have Abe Duque, who does music production basics. So he like works in a track with different DAWs. I think he's using, not sure what he's doing this week. He might be finishing a track or starting a new track, but you get a look into his whole process. And then John Selway's Techno Saturdays, which is a really fun show. Obviously, techno master John Selway. Usually he brings on cool guests too from the techno world. So it's a lot of fun. And of course, this today on Tuesday, which is always a good time. Ed says, please share that in Discord. What should I share in Discord? Remind me. Oh, you're talking to Enigmatic Onion. Perfect. Hello, Rev Saves. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I appreciate it. Well, I don't want to do too much here at the top. Of course, we want to get into the interview with our guests. So please allow me in welcoming our friend, Nandu. Welcome. How are you today? Thanks for joining.
Oh, I'm fine today. You know, here I know it's morning.
Morning for me.
The evening. Yeah, and here's the evening after a busy day. Lockdown is coming to an end here in Copenhagen, and I have a second job in a music venue here.
Wow.
And we're starting to get ready for a new season. Hopefully, we'll have our first concert the 6th of May.
Wow.
It's an indie venue, and what I do there is I'm care of the staff and do like shift planning and stuff like this. Yeah.
Wow. Is there a lot more preparation going into that, and with like any new regulations or things because of COVID?
Yeah, there is a lot of that. And also it's actually, we did not open after summer last year. So we haven't been open since March last year. So there's also right now everyone like from the managing director to the bartenders are just cleaning and preparing, painting, rebuilding some stuff to be able to host more people there.
Yeah.
Because of the restrictions. Yeah. So a lot of stuff is going on, and spring actually really arrived this like a few days ago. So now it's been almost 20 degrees, which is very nice for us here. It's over tomorrow though, but today it's been super nice. I don't know if you can see, but I'm a little tan now. Actually.
Nice. Wow. So spring is in the air indeed. Well, hey, like I said, like thanks so much for being on the show. I know we have a lot of like kind of beginner home studio music producers, or maybe not beginners, maybe intermediate, etc., but people doing their own thing, learning about music production, producing from home. And I want to kind of get into you and your story, because I think when artists share kind of their story, how they got into this whole world and how they kind of survive in it, I think it's helpful, because that story doesn't always get shared, and people need other roadmaps to see like what is possible for them. So I would love to hear just like in the terms of music, in terms of being an artist, like how do you define yourself and how do you define what you do as an artist?
So for me, like it's never been a choice to not be an artist. You know, I've been playing music since I was a kid. I played the trumpet for many years, played in a brass band.
Nice.
In a small city outside of Copenhagen. Then I really went into studying music theory while playing the trumpet. But then one day I never really.
Oh, we just lost your audio. Looks like something switched off or something. Oh, something. I can hear the wire. Maybe. Sounds like it could be.
So can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Can you hear? Perfect. There's a built-in microphone in my microphone, so that's
perfect.
Good. Yeah, and it sounds good now.
Yeah, sounds good.
Perfect. So what I was saying was that I spent a lot of time on studying more classical music, and then one day I saw an interview with Tandemøller, the big Danish hero. Audio's fine.
Audio's good. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I saw a video with him, and he was like, "Hey, I bought this cheap computer in the supermarket, and now I'm making electronic music." And I guess I was about 15 years, and then almost from one day to another, I switched into this idea of just creating music with no kind of boundaries around it. It was very inspiring for me, and from that on, I just kept on making music, developing. I've been DJing for a bit more than 10 years. I started out in a duo. I've been doing solo stuff and everything. But for me, it's always been about the music, right?
Yeah.
I should just said before, which I think is very interesting. It's always interesting to hear like behind the curtain stories about artists, right? Because
totally.
I think if you look at my Instagram, it looks like, my life is just sitting in the studio and whatever. And for example, this last year has been a fucking nightmare, right? Because there was no income, and everyone knows this, right? So, but my point is that I've always had like a second job, and I went to university. I got a degree in Middle Eastern history. I've been working in the music business for a lot of years, and this has always been like 30% of a passion.
Sure.
But 70% was always like creating music.
I totally appreciate you saying that, because I think it is easy to get caught up in the social media game of just, obviously we as artists want to put out like our best image, right? Like, and we put out like what do we do as producers, as musicians? That's what we show to the world. But we don't always talk about like, the second job or the studies that people don't even know about. So I really appreciate you bringing that up, because that's important.
Yeah, and also but that's also a thing for me, because when you make art, I see myself creating art. I mean, you need to be aware of your own thoughts, and the best way of doing that is to like to study, to read, to talk to people, and to also, it's very important for me to be outside my own bubble.
Yeah.
Because if I just sit here and have a good time about my own music, or stay in a club where people like me, right? Then you're kind of blind to what life is also really like, if you get my point.
Yeah, it is also about like the art and the music that we create is our reaction to the world. It's our reflection on the world around us. So if you're not doing anything other than music, I mean, like I had a pretty not great college experience at a state university here in the States, but it was like a liberal arts college, which meant I had to take a lot of different classes other than just music classes. And I think that that's one of the biggest benefits of that kind of program, because you get exposed to different literature, different areas of study. So like you're not just in this bubble, like you said.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people maybe, I felt that also when, I talk to a lot of artists outside of the electronic music world, especially through my job at this venue I was talking about and my earlier jobs in the music business. And I feel that there's kind of, people feel a little shamed of doing something else than music. And I also often hear people like, so this was so liberating for me because from this day I started to living only for music. And my opinion is that it doesn't matter if you live only from music.
Yeah.
It depends on how much you live for the music. That's what the art is about.
Yeah.
And also, as we said, like whatever art you're creating, if there's nothing to reflect in your art from real life, then for what is it worth, right?
Exactly. I think that's super poignant what you say. You don't have to live from the art, you have to live for the art. That's perfect. Man, that's all you right there, that quote. Wow.
Yeah. So that's it for today. Thank you very much.
And that'll be it for TAETRO Talks. That's funny. Yeah, that's amazing. Thanks. Yeah, that's a great daily shot of inspiration, chat. I hope you took that in. Write that down somewhere, chat. But that's great. I want to rewind a little bit and go back to you talking about being a part of that brass band and then converting and then going into electronic music, because I think it's interesting that you noted about like the freedom of electronic music and the nature of that. Do you want to talk about like the differences and coming from a more maybe classical world to transitioning into the electronic world and what that was like?
Sure. Yeah, of course. Like for me, a big factor in this development was also my age, right? So when I was a kid, I wanted to play music. My parents said, let's do that. It took me to music school. And so I started like my technical and my skill set, that background started there. So I started practicing and like, I read notes perfectly and can play from like notes on the trumpet, whatever. Yeah. But the process of like writing and creating, for me, it feels like in the more classical sense of music theory, you have to work for so many years before you start creating. You learn how to master an instrument and learn to play others' music, and then at some point you'll start to write. Maybe, of course, people start to write earlier, but I did not, because in this band it was there was not room for that.
Right.
So I just played what they gave me, and it was very fun with a lot of young people, and actually it was a kind of a weird constellation of people, because there was like super old people and kids and like people in between or whatever. So it was also it was a social project, really. But for me, I always felt like missing something. There was something missing to this. I did not feel like yes all the time. I was more like, this is like what I want to do.
Bit. Was it like the creation aspect that you were missing?
Today I think so, yeah. But I did not know at the time because I was 15 years old, right?
Right.
But it was definitely, that, because I know you know this, but that when you play music and if you produce music, when you forget about time and space, I know this sounds like a cliche, but everyone who does it knows that it's real, right? So this point was missing. I was never sitting there between these other 25 people and thinking, wow, what did just happen to the last 2 hours? It was more like, so soon a break. And yeah. So in terms of that, I think it was the writing that I was, or the creating part that I was missing. At least that's how I feel now, because also in this week's masterclass in the weekend, I will talk a little bit about how I arrange music, because I tend to hear a lot of people talking about it's so hard to finish a track.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and for me that part is not hard at all, because it's just business as usual. That's maybe where the music theory come in, just to finish it, and then on top of that add the creativity. Just make a skeleton, I don't know what you call it, like the red thread, the base of the track, and then it in terms of minutes it will be over, it will be finished. But if you on top of that you close your eyes and all this all this weird magic happen.
Yeah.
On top of that, then your track is finished. And people often look into the DAW and see, and it's like, it's not finished. Yeah, it's the track. Maybe it will take. For me, I make mostly house music and techno. Like all elements that you really need to make a track good is over in 16 bars. That's it.
Yeah.
Then it's just how you arrange it, right?
Yeah.
And the arrangement is often, of course, you have to be creative. But if you maybe start to put the creative part aside, just do it the way you normally do, and then afterwards start to play around with it. Then it's easily done.
Yeah.
I feel
that you bring up a good point, because I do a lot of streams where I'll be like, you know, making music from scratch, and then I always kind of put it to the audience like, hey, should we finish this track or should we start a new one? And it usually is overwhelmingly people want to see me start a new one because I think that's a little more exciting because it comes down to it's the 8 to 16 bar loop that you, when you arrange it across the timeline, it's a little more tedious and it is a little more like work. I wonder for you, can you like put a little more words to the idea of like you talk about you're living for the music is the passion, but what is the line of like, yes, you do it because you love it, but then there's also work to be done. Like how, like what is the discipline you've built up to get that half done, the work part?
I mean, like in life, there's always, you have to, I don't know if you can say this in English, but in Danish we have a saying you take the sweet with the sour. No, you take the sour with the sweet.
Sure.
Do you say that? Yeah. And it's the same with music, but for me, it's from, I was about, I think, 17 years old. I'm 30 today. For maybe 6, 7, 8 years, I was in the studio every day.
Wow.
5 hours, something like this. And I was working with a guy called Thomas. His artist name is Radect. He's also doing electronic music. And we were like just there every day, and we made so many tracks, and most of them were extremely shitty, right? But we did the work. We got a routine. So for me, it's so easy to say, okay, it's done now. What will I do? Okay, now we need some energy here. What should I do? I'll just do it, because that's the, like, if you play trumpet, you need to read the notes, right?
Yep.
You need to learn to count and all this shit. And if you do electronic music, of course, you need to know how your gear works, but you also need to have like this kind of skills overview, like a DAW. And what, for example, I know if there's a drop here and there's not enough energy, what should I do then? Then I will just remove 4 bars and put in something that's building up or whatever it is. But this is just some skills that takes time to master.
Yeah.
And I always got a lot of questions like, so how many years did it took for you to learn to use I work in Logic? And it's like, that was not so many years, but to get the routine in Logic takes years, and a lot of tracks.
Yeah.
Need to finish tracks. And I mean, the way I work is a lot of my friends who's doing music, they're like, spending so much time on last details and stuff. And I have like, after working a few hours with it, if it's not working, I'll just throw it out, because then the fun part is over.
Yeah.
And I'll just start struggling. And that's, yeah.
So do you find
that gets a little...
Do you find that you base your workflow around like what comes easiest to, not easiest, but what kind of flows rather than like trying to force something to work? Is that kind of your mindset?
Yeah, because I think that's what I learned from like playing more classical music, was that if it does not feel good, I get bored instantly.
Right.
So if I create a like, let's say I make a groove and then I start to play around something, oh, that's this melody, and then I make something and I settle on it pretty quickly, then I have some techniques to like maybe make it more interesting. If I don't feel it 100%, I can work on it for like a few hours or something. But if nothing comes, I will also throw out the beat.
Right.
Because the fun part is creating. I don't think it's fun editing.
Absolutely.
Very much.
So how do you get yourself to that editing phase? Do you try to make it do you try to get the process down so it's like the same every time as much as possible? Or like, what is your trick to getting yourself just over that hump? I guess it goes back to the sweet and the sour.
Yeah, but I think like normally when I start making a track, I don't care very much about the mix, for example. Yeah. I don't care much about that. I just care about the sonic feeling, that like if I have a hi-hat, does it feel good? And on top of that, then I put a bass, like, oh, does it feel good? Not out. Or if it feels good, just like keep it here, and then I build from there. And then at some point, as it also said before, if I start to get bored,
it's gone.
I lose interest, and then I will, then like 5 minutes later, I'll be like, oh, you're such a fucking shitty producer. You will never do anything with this in this life, even, right? I guess you know the feeling.
Of course, I know that feeling exactly.
I think
It doesn't matter what you do or what level you're at. I think everybody feels that. I feel that all the time. I think I was probably feeling that yesterday. Like it just happens.
Yeah, exactly. So people also ask me about how do I start a track?
Yeah.
And sometimes I remember one time I said in an interview, and afterwards I was like, okay, this is not, you sound like a fucking idiot. But my answer was with sound, and then it was like, yeah, okay, that was pretty arrogant, and it doesn't give anything to the listener. But the point is that I don't really. Some people always starts with the kick, for example, if
Right.
it's dance music. I start with whatever, like whatever comes to my mind. Often a track could start outside the studio with an idea for like, okay, I just have an idea of this simple kick and maybe a little percussion, and then on top of that I will have a simple melody, and it's just these three elements. I go to the studio and I think I need to make the melody, and then or maybe I use some more analog stuff, and then suddenly I feel that in between two of the notes there's this amazing little glitch or whatever. I cut it out and then I go somewhere totally different than I thought.
Yeah.
So I have so maybe it starts with a thought or an idea, but it's always if the track will be good in the end, it starts like this.
Yeah.
Like
And then
out
it
of
goes in
control.
unpredictable directions.
Yes, and that's when the tracks are the most interesting, I feel.
I agree. I wonder, what was your first foray into making music? Like, what DAW did you start using? Like, how did you even start in electronic music?
Actually, I started with the guy Thomas I told you about before, but before we knew we wanted to make electronic, I think we were 11 or 12. We wanted to work with this Thomas' big sister, older sister. She was into dance music, and when she went to Copenhagen to rave all the time, we were like, "Oh, this is amazing!" We would listen to Cascada and like
Yeah.
shitty Eurotrance, right? And then someday he knew that you could get like this software called Dance EJ. So we got this, and we were working with it, and it was super nice for 2 hours, and then we just shut it down, and then we went back to it a few times. But after then, the thing I told you about before the interview I heard with Trentemøller, I started in Logic. And I think that was more like coincidence. I think I talked to a guy who said Logic is the shit, and I started doing that.
It's so interesting.
And I still work in Logic. I also work in Ableton, but that's for my live set.
Oh, interesting. So would you say you work more on your like productions in Logic, and then you're converting those productions to live in Ableton Live?
Exactly. Yeah. So everything is produced in Logic, and I think I kind of like the idea of having this old school DAW where you just have the tracks and you put on a chain of whatever you want, and then you take it from there in a bit more old school way, and I really also like Ableton and all that you're able to do in Ableton, all these creative processes, and it's very intuitive and all this. But I have this kind of flow in my studio with my stuff outside the box, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it was never. I never felt like I was missing. Maybe it's actually because this frame, these four walls that Logic is also was kind of a nice way to limit the possibilities a little bit, to focus on a bit more, maybe a bit narrow to the detail or the simple melody or whatever.
Sure. You mentioned working outside the box. Do you want to talk a little bit about your relationship with like working in the box, working out of the box? Like, is it a pretty hybrid setup you've got?
Yeah, totally. And I have to say that a lot of my friends are super nerdy, either in the box or outside the box, and I don't really give a shit about like. No, I listen very much. Like I like to I can hear when stuff sounds good, but I don't care how an LFO works.
Right.
I know how it works, but I don't. I would never. Now I need to do this because I want the frequency to rise. I want to do it like because it sounds good. So my whole setup is. It's just like I can maybe show.
Oh, nice! We're gonna get a look around. I like that.
Let's try to see if we can actually. Oh, can you still hear me?
I can.
I take the microphone with me here.
Even better.
So,
well, the plant looks great. You got a couple compliments on your plant in chat, so that's good.
Let's see if. Oh, I think it will not work very well. No.
No worries.
I can't get the camera to move. But you can go to the. Yeah, exactly. You can go to the 343 Pro Sessions Instagram or my Instagram and to check, because we did a small promo video.
Oh, nice. Perfect.
Showing the studio. But I have a lot of old gear, some weird old the pocket synth, and then I have some more classical. I have a Juno 106. I have a Hohner pianette. I have another old Hohner weird synth. Then I got a lot of small percussions, and I got a dedicated area for recording them.
Yes.
And spent a lot of time recording weird stuff,
I noticed in some of your tracks that one thing that I like about making electronic music is blending organic and electronic elements. So, and I've noticed in your tracks, you do a lot with hand percussion and, acoustic percussion instruments. Is that a big important part for you in your music?
Yeah, definitely. I would say for many years, that was my main point of doing music, was to like record stuff and like editing until it sounded weird, so it's like unrecognizable or something like this, right? And back to what I said before, that I'm not a geek when it comes to the quality of sound. I don't have any expensive digital to analog to digital converters or anything. I just have a reasonable sound card, just then threw that into the DAW. And I mean, I feel it sounds good. I never heard anyone saying that it does not. So
yeah,
for me, that's, and I think it's very important for me when up-and-coming producers ask me, so what gear do you like the most, and does it have to cost a lot to have a good studio? It doesn't, man. Fuck that shit. Right. I've been doing all my tracks for the last 4 years in these headphones.
What headphones are those? Because some people asked in the chat, what headphones are those?
Let me
show them off.
So these are the Superlux HD 681 at the cost of 15 euros.
Not bad.
Exactly. And it's just like, I've been using them for 10 years, so I know them very, very well. And for like all records for the last 4 years has been both produced and mixed in these ones.
Amazing.
So you can like, I know there's a lot of people right now saying, yeah, but you can't hear everything, and I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, but
it works very well for me.
How much of it is it for you? Like, you just learned the headphones, so you learned like how to mix with them because you know what frequencies you can and can't hear, or what frequencies are a little more prominent, so you mix accordingly.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there that?
Yeah, I think it's that, but the thing is also that they sound good. It's not like these small atom. No, it's not. Yamaha, these old Yamaha speakers that a lot of people use for reference listening because they sound shit. It's not like that, because you get the full experience here. You have a lot. I think I heard some rumors that it's a copy of some more. I think it's AGK.
Yeah, AKG.
Yeah, AKG, exactly. That you can hear how much I'm not a geek when it comes to this. But this is nice, and I actually been in a few studios with very good sounding. Sound improvings and good speakers, but I always just come back to this. And actually, because I think it's 3 years ago, I just had my son, and I was like, okay, so do I want to work more or make more music? And I was like, I want to make more music, so I have to like leave my studio because it's super expensive here. And I just made music at home, and then I had in my living room I had this table. I could I took this out, and then I had the sound card and everything, and then we have it's called an attic upstairs with old shit, right? And then I had like just some shelves with the instrument stuff. I took down what I needed, recorded it downstairs, put it up again, and just made music like that.
And you just made it work.
For me, yeah, exactly. And again, some people, they need like environment that is dedicated for the music to be able to create it, and I totally respect and understand that, but I don't feel that way.
It kind of just travels with you, like your abilities, and especially with a laptop
now. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've always been working on the laptop, even so. It's always been a thing for me to go to the studio and record stuff, and then work on it when I came home.
Right. I mean, that's the luxury that we have now with portable technology and all that.
Exactly. Are you in a dedicated studio or at home?
I'm at home. This is a dedicated little room that I use like for content and for music. But Yeah, I've been a home studio bedroom producer from the beginning. I don't know. I just need to be comfortable, and I also need the freedom. I think it's a little bit of what you talked about. Like when it hits, when the inspiration hits, or when you want to make something, I want to be able to make it. I don't want to have to be like, oh, well, I'm not at the studio, so I don't have X, Y, Z. You know, it's the
Yeah,
convenience. You
yeah,
want to just make it when it happens.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And that's also the thing for me, right? I have this studio now, which I got recently, and it's actually just an old basement room in the place where I live, and it's super cheap. That's why I have it now, because
Right.
after COVID, it's not like I could just go out and buy a big studio somewhere.
Totally.
But for me, but I can feel that now it suits me very well to have this place. After a few years away from it, it's super nice to have somewhere dedicated for it.
Right.
But it's not necessary to create.
Absolutely. I think once the work starts being able to pay for it a little bit, that's probably the time to step in and maybe upgrade to something like that. But yeah, that's cool. I wonder, do you want to talk a little bit about, because you mentioned it before, like converting like tracks to live? I wonder like what that process is like, and you know what your philosophy is around that, about making a track that was once just a recording and now making it, maybe altering it for live, or at least converting it to a different DAW.
Yeah, sure. So how should I start? I think it was in 2011 or 12. I was making music with Thomas, the guy I mentioned before, and we had this duo we were called Lehman and Dickman. You can find it on Spotify. And we wanted to play live, and we were very big fans of, I don't know how to pronounce it, but DOP. I think they're French, so maybe Dip or something like this.
Sure.
I don't know if you know them.
I'm unsure.
They have this vocalist. No, they have this vocalist called Jaw, and they were just amazing, and they were amazingly fucked up all the time, but it was very nice. And what they did was so they just had a big analog mixer, and then they just converted all their tracks into like a kick, and then maybe some percussion, and then hi-hat or whatever, maybe some lead, and then they were playing on top of that with different instruments. We got very inspired by that and developed that a bit, and that was, I think it's kind of the philosophy to, so basically it's just the way I play. It's basically just a DJ set with 8 tracks, and on top of that, the ability to play live instruments. And one of like among the 8 tracks, there will be the lead tracks and whatever.
Yep.
So they can be as long as I want to, and then I can edit it as much as I want to.
Yeah.
During the set, and this makes kind of, and so I just convert. Let's say I have a track. I just take the kick, I make a 16-bar line, bounce it into Wave and master it, and then I put it into Ableton.
Nice.
And then I trigger with I use APC Mini at the moment because it needs to be 1 second.
Yeah, grab it. You know we love to show off the gear, chat, right? As much as we can.
So, I use my...
This is what my chat wants to see. This is what they like. MIDI controllers.
So, exactly. So I just use this one for triggering. Then normally I have I have kick, bass, clap, snare, hat, percussions, leads, and then I can record. I have MIDI controllers, so I can just record loops.
Nice.
During the set. Then I use this one for effects. I have normally, like, the core in my live set is the Sound 96, the new Alan Heath, or it's not that new anymore because it has a sound card into it, so I can.
Got it.
So kind of I sum these into channel 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then I can put analog synth into that, and also my VSTs into that. And then I just go through the set like this, right?
Nice. Are you dividing the tracks up into sections, or is the whole track one clip? Is the whole song's kick is in one clip, or is it divided into sections?
The whole track's kick is shorted down to 60 bars.
Got it.
So it's just loops like that, right? And I can easily take the kick from another track so you can just mix it like you want to. Sometimes it's amazing what a new hi-hat can do to a track.
For sure.
And this small way of changing this, I think that's really fun. Besides that, I always make a backtrack. So what I do is that I used to call it the bass track, or so. Bass, not the BASS, but BASE, right?
Yeah.
And then I mix these together. So that will be from the start to the beginning, and it will have some effects and maybe some leads and something that is. So I have something to just fill all the other stuff on top of that, and
Right.
it gives like a start and like a beginning and an end to the set, which is super nice. It makes me totally free, and I can still go into that and loop it if I want to play something again or whatever.
Got it. Very cool. That sounds fun. I'm curious to know, what is your rehearsal process like? Are you just setting everything up and going for it and jamming? Like, what did the hours for rehearsals look like? Like, I think people are interested in hearing what that's like.
It's a lot of time. I spend a lot of time on that. So normally I would take a week to do that. So because right now I have all my tracks. Every time I finish a track, and if I'm satisfied with it, I just bounce it into live stems.
Right.
Um. So, and so I can always just use the whatever track I want to. So first part of the process is to just put the tracks into a playlist. Which one do I want in there? Then I start to load into Ableton, play around with it, and then in the end, when I have the finished set, I just play through it maybe 20 times or something.
Right. And how improvisational is it when you do it from rehearsal to going live? Like, do you discover new things when you get on the stage, or the energy is different, or things like that?
Yeah, of course. Sometimes it's sometimes you can just think, like, if you listen to it in the studio and you go on the stage, and then the energy is just it's not there.
Right.
But then it's nice to be able to just, for example, it could be a track that I never played out before live. I just made it in the studio, and then the kick is just flat or something. Then it's easy to just switch into another kick from one of the other tracks and make it work from there. So that's also the freedom to just be able to travel through your catalog that
Right.
way.
And Rev Saves in the chat asked a question, which is kind of, I think, what you were talking about a little bit. But do you ever debut unfinished tracks live, just to test them out and see how they go, see how people react?
I would say that I would never play an unfinished track, but it could be an untested track.
Untested, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's always, what kind of feedback do you look for when you have like an untested track? Are you looking for like crowd reaction, how it sounds in the room? Like what sort of things do you mark as like?
Yeah, primarily the energy from people, because I mean that's a reflection of the sound in the room and how the energy is in the way the track is built and everything, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I have some questions here. I'll continue taking questions from chat. So, folks, if you want to dump some questions in chat, please go for it. But I also have questions here from the 343 Pro Sessions Instagram account, because we put out a story and people filled in what they want to know ahead of the pro session, which is coming up this weekend. So let's talk about that. So Revoj on Instagram wants to know if you mix your own tracks. Like, are you fully mixing and doing everything for your own tracks, or you send it off to somebody?
I produce and mix everything, and then I have some people mastering the track.
Nice.
And so that's a short answer to that.
Yeah.
I mean, for many years I was very much in doubt about my own mixing skills, hence the not being super geek.
Right.
Into this process, right? And then at some point, I think it's 5 years ago, something, I used a guy, an engineer for that, and the tracks sounded very nice. Not like my tracks though, but they sounded good, but not better. So I decided to go back to just do it myself. And I would also say that I improved my mixing skills a lot over the last 4 years, 3 years after this experience, actually. Yeah.
What went into improving your mixing skills for yourself? Like, did you study hard, or were you just like trial and error? Like, what was your process for kind of building that skill?
I just did it a lot.
Yeah.
And then I started playing much more, which made it possible for me to listen to it on different systems and stuff like this.
Got it.
So it was just, I get back to just do it a lot of times.
Right. Another question. Somebody, Guara, says, how did he get his name? It sounds very Indian, and I'm Indian too. That's why I'm curious. So how did you get your name?
Nandu. Yeah, so now if you're looking for like a philosophical and deep story, then you have to go somewhere else, because I went from being in this duo with Thomas I told you about. I wanted to try something out, something by myself out, and then I was just, it needs to be short, and it needs to be easy to pronounce in every way, and it's okay if it sounds a little bit tropical. And so it's just like, and then I saw it somewhere. I was like, hey, this is my name. So it has no meaning to it, absolute.
Well, it's a little bit like the music creation process. When something feels good, it is good. So you just put it in. So if you see the name and it just clicks, it calls to you. So that's cool.
Yeah, I still remember first time I think I played in Marseille in south of France, and then that was the first time somebody was yelling to me and saying, "Hey, Nandu!" I was like,
right.
That's me.
Recognize it as your own name.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Now I grew into it now.
Yeah. You've referenced the duo a couple times. I wonder, is there a big? Obviously, there must be a difference between being in a duo or being solo, and maybe do you prefer one or the other, or are they just two different elements? You want to talk about some of the major differences there?
I mean, it depends on the people who is in it, right? Me and Thomas, we've been best friends since we were 10 years old, and we still are, but we are very different. But the duo was perfect for us. It was a perfect place to grow because we had each other all the time. We started playing abroad together, right? Which means that we could have the hangover and the flight on the way home together.
Nice.
And we could have the success and the failures together, which was super nice. And also in terms of, I mean, it's always nice to have something to fail. No, to have someone to fail with.
Got it.
That was really like a huge thing for both of us. I think we wanted to do different things and had different ways of going there. So it was a natural thing for us to split up, and we never had like a fight over it. It was not like
right. You just wanted to do your own thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
And we still do, both of us. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm gonna keep going with these questions from Instagram. Lunatic Wanderer asks, "What are your go-to VSTs?"
Oof.
You don't have to do the whole list, but maybe a top couple.
I would say for processing, it's always sound toys or waves. Waves is for me, it's the more old school way of improving the sonic quality on your elements in the track, and the sound toys is an amazing way to develop your sound into different directions, to crush it, to do something else, and to be more creative. I don't want to be creative with a compressor on my kick. I want it to sound just like this, right? And sound toys is the way to do something else. And for like synthesizer VSTs, I'm really fond of Arturia because it sounds like all the machines that I don't have the money to buy, right?
Right.
So that's And then if I want something to sound weird and different, I would take an instrument that sounds normal or whatever you say, and then put it into maybe sound toys.
For sure.
I also use the Fab Filter package. It's very good.
It's interesting. I hear from so many producers, like, I don't know, it's almost like everybody feels the same way. It's the Arturia synths because they sound like the synths and the hardware that nobody can afford to buy right now. And then the sound toys for like manipulating sounds and like everything you just said. And the Fab Filter. Yeah, everybody always brings up Fab Filter too. That seems to be a pretty good trifecta there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it's still interesting to see that even though a lot of people are using the same tools, you're able to do whatever you can make it sound your own way.
Right. Yeah,
but
that's awesome.
I think that's also the quality of them, that you're able to do whatever you want to.
Yeah.
In these,
Question from Mike Ganu over on Instagram asks, how do you work your grooves? So I guess the question there is like, I don't know, groove in your music. Like we talked about the hand percussion, different things like that. But how do you approach grooves? Seems to be a lot about feel for you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the answer to that. It's a feel. I said also in the same interview as I mentioned before, where afterwards I was like, this is a little arrogant, but the answer is that I played it, so I would never draw a percussion groove, or because I would always play it.
Yeah.
Or I would use like a VST, and then I would play it, right?
Yeah. I think that adds to, I don't know, you talked about freedom with electronic music too at the beginning, and sometimes electronic music can feel rigid and cold and kind of locked in, but the elements that you add to the music, it does feel more free and more organic, I guess. So that comes through. That's really cool.
Yeah.
What is more important? This is from Juan on Instagram. What is more important, signing new tracks or touring? This is kind of an interesting question. I guess this is a broader like business question.
Yeah.
Like, how do you interact with the music business, this side of things?
I mean, for me, I would. If the question was what is more important, to create new music or tour, then I would say create new music because that's where it comes from.
Right.
But then, if you start to create music, then it's equally important because it depends on each other, right? So you need to sign new tracks to go tour, and you need to go tour in order to people to like notice you, unless you're a wizard on social media like yourself. Or, but that's never been my thing. I'm more into to just be in the studio.
Right. How has the past year kind of impacted you with being unable to tour? Do you find you're doing anything differently, or are you just kind of trying to get through, or new skills?
I've just been crying in my bed.
Are you really dying to get back out there on the road?
Yeah, definitely. Also because for me, my career has been like stably going upwards, better
Yep.
and better. But it seemed like 2020 was kind of my year. Stuff started really to take off in the beginning of the year, and also because even though I don't want this to be about the money, it's also about the money because if I should be able to sit here a lot of hours, I need money to
For sure.
pay for stuff, right? Yeah. So and I never been touring enough to like save a lot of money or anything. I always been living on a rock, so to say, and now it felt like something was changing a bit there. And then COVID came, and then it was just I've been living from my wife's salary the last
Right.
year, so I think that's been rough, but and it's been so hard for me because I'm the kind of guy who like I deal with my problems by going to work,
Yeah.
try to solve the problem. And a lot of people can relate to that, I feel,
Yeah.
because, you cannot do that here.
Exactly. Well, you can't go out and solve that problem. It must be so frustrating. But I appreciate the realness of that. I think everybody needs to hear that. That's kind of how we started the conversation too. So that is the reality. But light at the end of the tunnel, it seems.
Yeah, exactly. And now, yeah, definitely. I think I'll start having a few gigs, start summer, and then let's see how the whole situation in the world works out for the next few months. Let's hope for the
Yeah.
best, right?
Fingers crossed. One more question
exactly.
from Instagram is a question about chord progressions. What do you? Well, it says, do you think about chord progressions while producing? So, like, how do you build up your chord progressions? Are you thinking that way? I know with house and techno, it can be different, but yeah, what do you think about chord progressions?
I mean that it's important to be aware of the way that music theory works and how notes interfere with each other. But I never been a great piano player, for example, and I never found it interesting to like, let's say, use a chord, no, an app for finding out which chords you need
Right.
to go to, and then you take the C minor, and then you go to the G or so, whatever. What you can hear right now, I'm just like,
Yeah.
so I'm always listening. My fingers know how to do it, right? But I just listen again. So back to just listen to what the music can like, how you react to it, how your mind react. So that's the way I kind of develop my progressions, I think.
Sure. Totally. Awesome. Well, thank you for everybody who submitted some questions from Instagram. I think we were able to answer most of them. I didn't ask all of them, but that's because I think we cover them in the conversation. So thanks. I want to remind everybody that Nandu has a pro sessions coming up this weekend, which is like a weekend deep dive. Maybe let's give everybody a little taste. What do you plan on focusing on this weekend? What's kind of the format? You want to just take us through, give us a little preview and what to expect on this weekend's pro session?
Yes, of course. I think that actually we've been talking about a lot of the things just briefly today, but what I really want to go into is the idea that music is not about theory. Music is about music, right?
Right.
And I will talk about a lot about creativity and inspiration, and then I will show people how I do it. And the thing, I tried to turn the camera now. It didn't go very well, but in the weekend we'll have more cameras. so I can switch freely between them and show actually how it's done. So I will go into, I think we'll start to create a track, uh, and just record stuff, edit it, arrange it a little bit, and from there I will record stuff with microphones, try to show you how I'm doing this and how I process it afterwards. Then we will talk a little bit about my live set. And the thing there will also, of course, be like a shared screen, so I'll show you how I work in the DAW, and also with my live set.
Awesome.
And then I will dissect a few track, so I will let you into some finished projects, and show you how I actually how it looks when it's finished, right? Because it's always so easy to talk about all these tracks and
Yeah.
VSTs and
But
whatever.
seeing it
But
really changes things.
yeah, exactly. And also, because sometimes I have super long effect chains on my tracks,
That should
which
be
is
interesting to look
it
at.
will be nice to like go through that, see how does the sound when it's before it's
Yeah.
processed and then afterwards, and go into this. But the overall topic is creativity and inspiration, because
Nice.
that's what matters the most to me.
Yeah, I feel that. I think that we're probably similar in that vein. So yeah, if all that sounds interesting and you want to go, like we're obviously just having a conversation today and now, but over the weekend you want to actually click into these project files and like see these effects chains and see all the gear in action and see all of this actually happening in practice and get a deep dive into that. Please check out the link in the description for a Nandu's Pro session. And Rev Saves is reminding everybody in chat to use TAETRO Talks, code TAETRO Talks, to get $10 off. And I think that should be really great. Well, Nandu, I think that is it. Oh, will it be available to watch later? Yes, it will. So make sure you head to the Pro Sessions site to do this. If you want to get more of a feel for the cameras and stuff, Nandu talked about on the 343 Pro Sessions Instagram account and on Nandu's account as well. You can see like kind of the multi-camera setup and what's going to be going on. So that's really cool. It should be a good time on the Pro Sessions. Anything else people need to know you want to leave people with before we go today in this interview?
I think it's very important that, like, a lot of my friends and myself has been struggling a lot this past year, and I feel that I'm about to go back to some kind of normal life again, and I started to be really happy again, and I really want to share that, because a big part of my personal happiness is to create music.
Right.
So people needs to be happy, and I hope that I can help the people struggling with music production to feel a little bit more happy after the session.
That's fantastic. Happiness over everything. That's what I always say.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree with you.
Let's stay on that for 1 second because we have a little more time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Mental health as a music producer, as a musician, as an artist, like, are you doing, like, especially with having such a tough year, are you doing anything, like maybe music is your meditation? That's how I always feel. Like music is my meditation. I also use video games as meditation because it's just something that helps me not think about anything else. Is there any like specific approach you have to mental health for yourself as an artist, especially during tough times?
Yeah, definitely. And that's like this. If I have to choose one thing above all, it's my family. I have a beautiful wife, and I have a little boy who's 4 years old now. And I always, it gives me some kind of strength to know that I need to be there for them. And also when I'm together with them, I feel happy, obviously. So that's one of the go-tos. Like if I feel down, I go to them. Also, I do a lot of workout, like fitness.
So physical
workout.
health.
Physical health is very important because your mind is part of this physical structure that you're born into, right?
Yeah.
So of course you need to take care of yourself that way. I can also feel like, for example, in a year like this, we have like the winter's a very dark year.
Yeah.
So we've been a lot inside, eating good food and drinking some wine, and maybe too much, right? And that does not help on the mental
For sure.
state. Yeah, exactly. So it's always, for me, it's always a go-to to try to work out or take a run, go for a run or something like this, and then the music. But the thing has, like, during I think December, January, February, I did not make one single track. I simply hadn't had any like creativity left, because yeah, it was a tough time. But now with the spring arriving and everything, it was just like flows from my fingers to the synthesizers and to the computer.
That's so amazing. Well, thank you for being so candid in this conversation. I think there's a lot of like reality checks here in this talk that hopefully people were able to take a lot from. I think they definitely were from folks in the chat.
And that's actually, I think that one last point is to try to keep some like keep your feet a little bit on the ground, especially if in this like weird international scene that the music business is today, because everything very quickly gets stuck into Instagram and they have more than I do and they play more gigs than me. And people have given them more likes, and I think this is not a new story, but I think it's very important to remember this also, because for me normally this business is about, when you go travel, you meet real people, talk to new people, like the people who has a real life somewhere else in the world. And then during this year, in the beginning, it was amazing to be able to talk to people from all around the world.
Right.
But I also feel that at some point I just then because it's very much, it's imagination, right? You imagine you were there, or you start to say, I want to be there. And you need to stay in reality, stay grounded as much as you can, to be able to be truly happy. Because I mean, it's nice if you have a career that is dependent on your social media following to see it go up. But the problem with being an artist is that if your job is to be an artist, it will merge with your private life. And then you become the person who is only happy if people like your Instagram post.
Yes.
And that is so dangerous. And we're all sucked into that. But we need to find, it's important to find a balance.
Yeah. Recenter, remember it's the art. I'm going to go back to what you said earlier. It's like you don't have to make a living from the art. You have to live for the art, Yeah.
I
think that's fantastic. Nandu, thank you so much for this conversation. Folks, please check out the pro session with Nandu this weekend. The link is in the description, and you can save $10 right now. Weekend deep dive with the artist himself. So please check that out. 343 Labs Pro Sessions happening this weekend. I will also be live in 1 hour checking out the Arteria Pigments plugins, so stay tuned for that. Pre-stream is already live on my channel, so check that out. Nandu, once again, thank you so much for taking the time and having this conversation.
For having me.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. This has been TAETRO for TAETRO Talks. I'll see you in an hour. Have a good one.